To the left, you'll see meetings and events. I think it's like the third option in the list of meetings. So there you will find the papers that we have published for this meeting. First of all, the objective of this meeting, and this is important, is to collect from you your main concerns and challenges in which ICAO uh, can support you. As you know, this year we have the ICAO Assembly, and with the new Assembly, we have new challenges, including changes in the budget of ICAO, and also changes in the business plan and in the operations plan of the organization, which gives us the opportunity of reviewing what we've done so far, what can be improved from the point of view of the organization, and also to better support you in the States. Another objective of this meeting is to give you information about AGA aspects and also the goals and challenges of the SAM states. Most of the states are members of the regional system, and as you know, we have a hybrid meeting of the aerodromes panel in which we will have a face-to-face and a virtual part. So we don't want to duplicate efforts, and that's why, although the meeting will touch upon some safety issues that are addressed by the panel, we don't want to duplicate efforts, and anything that we consider should be addressed by the panel will be addressed in the forum, in this forum. Just give me a second. Also, at this meeting, we want to provide the states information about these other initiatives related to air navigation that are not necessarily under the scope of safety. For instance, the projects being carried out under GREPICAS, some of which are not being addressed by the regional system, which is where we all participate. And finally, as you know, the SAM region is also made up by some states that do not participate in the regional system, including Suriname and Guyana, and we want to welcome our colleagues from those states. For those who are just joining, please select the language for simultaneous interpretation. So now we are going to begin with a round of introductions, just to know your name, your state, or organization in such a way that those of us who don't know each other can get to know you. So I wanted to start with you, Eduardo Alvarez from Argentina. Go ahead. You're muted, Eduardo. We cannot hear you. There's a noise. We're getting a noise. No, we cannot hear you. Now, what about now? Yes, that's better. Okay, sorry for that. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Fabio. My name is Eduardo Alvarez. I belong to the National Civil Aviation Administration. I'm Director of Aerodromes, and this is my first participation in this meeting of focal points. Thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. In the list, I have Mateus. Good morning. This is Mateus from Brazil. It's a pleasure to participate in this meeting. Please select the corresponding language. Mateus, I cannot hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? No? We can hear you. Yes, yes, it was me. I'm sorry. Sorry for that. Well, hello, everybody. This is Mateus from Brazil. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Mateus. We have Oscar Medina. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here at this meeting. I'm from Chile. Thank you. Adrian, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can. Good morning, everyone. I'm Adrian Basir from Guyana. I work with the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority, and presently I'm the Chief Inspector for ANS and aerodromes.
Thank you, Adrian. I was following the list of participants, but since the names are changing and the list is being updated, it's moving, so it's easier to do it by state. Eduardo, in addition to you, is there any other representative of Argentina? No, I'm the only one. Thank you. Mateus, aside from you, any other representatives of Brazil? Yes. Yes. Bernek is already connected. Lázaro? Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Lázaro from Brazil. I work in the AGA department of ANAC with aerodrome certification, and it's an honor to participate in this meeting. Greetings to all. Thank you, Lázaro. And I think that Jorge Bernek is also here. Yes, good morning, Fabio. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, good morning, everybody. Jorge Luis Werneck. I work in the SEA. I'm head of the aerodrome planning section of the SEA, and I'm representative of the AGA panel. Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Thank you. Any other representatives of Brazil? Good morning. Marcelo Sakura. I work in aerodrome oversight in ANAC, Brazil. It's an honor to participate in this meeting. Thank you, Marcelo. Any other representative of Brazil? I don't think so. Very well then. We continue with Chile. Oscar already introduced himself. Any other representatives of Chile? Go ahead, please. Can you hear me, Fabio? Yes, loud and clear. Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Roberto Cardosa. I represent Chile as AGA Focal Points. And I thank you for inviting us to the meeting. Thank you, Roberto. Anybody else from Chile? Yes, Yerko Camus. My name is Yerko Camus. I also belong to the Civil Aviation Authority of my country. I'm in charge of continuous surveillance. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Yerko. Good morning, everybody. My name is Renzi Jara. I also work in the planning section, aerodromes planning section. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Renzi. Good morning. Good morning, Fabio. Go ahead, Victor. Fabio, good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Victor Egaña. I'm inspector in continuous surveillance, and I work in regulations for AGA. Thank you. Welcome. Good morning. My name, well, first, greetings to all my colleagues from the various states. My name is Mario Verdugo Lagos. I'm aerodrome inspector, and I belong to the planning department of the DGCA. And I'm AGA advisor. Thank you. Thank you, Mario. No more representatives of Chile. In that case, Bolivia, please. Good morning. My name is René Delgado. I work in aerodromes as advisor of the focal points, to whom I now give the floor. Thank you. Fabio, good morning, dear colleagues. My name is Carlos Sanabria. I'm aerodrome instructor of the DGCA. I'm the focal point for these meetings. So thank you very much for the initiative of the ICAO regional office, and I'm at your disposal. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Rene. We continue. Just give me a second. We already did Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, and now let's go back to Colombia, just to follow the alphabetical order. And sorry for this. Ricardo, are you there? Hello, Fabio. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm Ricardo Aguirre from Colombia. I belong to the Civil Aviation Authority. I work with airport services, and I'm safety inspector. Thank you, Ricardo, and sorry for the confusion in the list. So let's continue with Ecuador. Any representatives from Ecuador? Very well, then we take notes. Adrian already introduced himself on behalf of Guyana, but in addition to Adrian, is there anybody else from Guyana in the meeting?
Hi, Fabio. We should have two other people. They're having a little challenge signing in, but they'll be here as soon as they can get in. Ahmad being one of them.
Thank you, Adrian. So we continue with Panama then. Good morning. Good morning, Fabio and all the colleagues. My name is Luis Herrera. I represent the Civil Aviation Authority of Panama, the standards and aerodrome safety operations. I'm aerodrome inspector, and now I'm the focal point for the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Luis. Any other representatives of Panama? No, Fabio, not for the time being. Thank you. So we continue with Paraguay. Do we have representatives of Paraguay? This meeting is being held in Zoom because of the simultaneous interpretation, but I know that some of you had some challenges in joining the meeting. Sorry for that. We're trying to solve those problems. Peru? Good morning, Fabio. Good morning, everybody. My name is Livio Benitez, Air Navigation Analyst of the DGCA of Peru. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I want to learn from the rest of the colleagues. So thank you, Livio. I think that Juan Flor was to participate. Could he join the meeting? I haven't seen him yet. Yes. I haven't spoken to him. So let's wait to see if he can solve the connection problem. So let's continue with Suriname.
Good morning, everybody. And I am Shakti Gurdat from Suriname on behalf of the Civil Aviation Department of Suriname. It's my first meeting at the focal points, and I'm also at the AGA Department of Katsur. There's currently nobody available, and they asked me to join the focal point. And my second job is also air traffic controller, aerodrome approach controller, just for your information. Just giving you some information. Friday, I joined also a meeting about the heliports. It was very interesting because Suriname is also booming with a lot of aerodromes with the onshore and offshore oil and gas exploitation. And I'm hoping to learn and to learn from you all to do the good job. Thank you.
Fabio, your microphone. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Yes, thank you. We also have another representative of Suriname, right?
Yes, good morning all. My name is Luciano Sumanta. I'm working with the Civil Aviation Safety Authority of Suriname as developmental aerodrome inspector. It's also my first time in the focal point meeting.
Thank you very much, Luciano. We also have a Brian, I think. Brian, you're muted. Brian, I think you're muted. Brian,
The interpretation has problem with Brian? Or you got it?
no, we cannot hear him. We cannot hear him.
Okay, Brian, will you try again, please? Yeah, I don't hear you. It's okay, Brian.
My apologies for this issue. So let us continue with your why. Good morning, everybody. I wish to thank Fabio for the invitation to participate in this meeting. My name is Carlos Garcia Pepe. I'm head of the Aerodromes and Certification Department of the DGCA of Uruguay. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Carlos. Pablo. Good morning to all the colleagues. My name is Pablo Cortés. I uh, I work with Carlos, and I'm also ag inspector. Thank you. Thank you, Pablo. Venezuela, please. Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Fabio, for the invitation. Reni Diaz from Venezuela. I work as a coordinator of the area of aerodromes, and I'm the focal point for the meeting. Thank you very much. Welcome, Reni. Any other representatives of Venezuela? Good morning, everybody. My name is Mayra Hernandez. I'm AGA inspector. I work in aerodrome certification. The first time that I participate in a meeting of a focal points. I'm advisor of focal points, and thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much. I think that we finished with the states, and we also have representatives of CARSAM PAF. Jainer. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Fabio. My name is Jainer Molina, biologist. I'm currently I chair the regional CARSAM group for the prevention of bird and wildlife hazards. Thank you, Jainer. Before moving on to the secretariat, anybody from the states I haven't mentioned because they joined afterwards or that I missed? Yes, good morning, everybody. Carlos Dario Seche from Colombia. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I had some problems with the connection, but fortunately I'm here now. So special greetings to all the colleagues of the region. Thank you, Carlos. Rodrigo, are you there? Yes, good morning. For those who don't know me, I'm Rodrigo Ribeiro. I work in the ICAO office as an aerodromes and ground aids expert in the SRV SOP, which is a regional system. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. Uh, uh, Although virtually, I know some of the colleagues, so it's a pleasure, and I'm at your disposal for whatever you may need. Thank you. Thank you, Rodrigo. We also have Eva, who's assisting in the regional office in the aerodromes program, and our interpreters who are supporting us in this event. Thank you very much for that support. Having said that, let's start. First, let me introduce the provisional agenda of the meeting. The meeting will be held in 3 days. Just give me a second. I think I have the order of business here. So the meeting will have this schedule from 9, and my apologies because this has not been updated, but it will start at 9, and we will work until 12:30 Lima time with a short break at 10:30, depending on how we move on with our discussions.
So the idea is to have meetings until 12:30, and on the last day, we'll do a closing wrap up. And maybe we'll have a chance to review those decisions or conclusions adopted during the meeting. As I said before, the idea is to know these challenges in order to conduct the meetings in the next biennium without duplicating efforts of the experts panel or any other groups that we may have. We have 7 agenda items. They look like too much, but they are related. First of all, the approval, then the follow-up on the previous meetings. We have had just one meeting. I'll show you the summary of the discussions in a bit. And then we also have an item related to the operations of the group. That is, we'll see how to conduct the work of this group. That's what we'll see. And then agenda item 2, updates and reports of the region. We'll be showing some ICAO updates of your interest. Agenda item 3 basically groups all safety aspect related to planning and aerodrome planning and design, aerodrome certification, operation and safety. And agenda item 4 covers the performance of air navigation and how airports are involved. Hopefully today we'll be able to cover agenda items 1 and 2, and then agenda items 3 and 4 will be covered tomorrow. As other business we have like aspects of resilience and adaptation of changes. We have not received any working papers under that agenda item, and then we have other business, and the last item is conclusions. And if you deem appropriate, we could plan for a next meeting. Are there any comments on this provisional agenda or tentative agenda? I do not hear anybody wishing to make a comment, as we did during the last meeting. And that is why we wanted to talk a little bit about how the work operates. During this meeting, we are not expecting to select a chairperson to guide the meetings, but we could talk about the possibility to do so during the next meetings. Maybe we could take it up to a more formal level and then have meetings electing a chairperson for the meeting. To be honest with you, I think that this meeting is just for us to get together again and join efforts to do the things we need to do and cover the aspects I already mentioned. Any comments on the agenda so far? Fabio, Pepe from Uruguay, I agree with you. Not appoint a chair for the meeting, but I agree that on this occasion, at this moment, we could have a more fluent meeting and not select a chairperson for this meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pepe. Well, this does not mean that in the future we won't change idea. As you know, we requested the appointment of a focal point by each state, and the idea of having a focal point, though there may be several representatives, the focal point designated would be the one to vote if a decision is to be adopted during the meeting. We have the structure, but as I was saying, the idea is just to take note of how we want to operate as a group, especially in this environment that complicates matters a little bit more. Well, so this is the agenda that we have for this meeting. So we also have this document, information paper 00, that has a list of working papers under this agenda item. If you'd want to do the follow-up, there are some colleagues that have expressed their desire to submit the paper, but they have not been able to do it in time. Now, if the meeting agrees, we could also give them a chance to present them for everybody's discussion. All right, so why don't we just go straight to agenda item 1. Under agenda item 1, I think the most appropriate thing would be to present a summary of the decisions adopted during the last meeting. Just give me 1 second, please. The last meeting was held in April of 2021 of the same nature, an informal meeting. According to the internal manual of ICAO, the objective was to start coordination with the AGA delegates in the region. Can you see my screen, which is the summary? Yes, we can. Well, this summary will be uploaded the meeting portal, both in English and in Spanish. I don't think we've done it yet, but we'll do so that you can have an easier following of the matter. So then we also discussed the meetings related to AGA AOP. Then we also talked a bit about some new amendments at that point in time when ICAO was processing those items. Then show the indicators in the regional office. Remember that the regional office has some specific goals established for the last reunion, and they discussed the main goals and the effective implementation of the recommended rules and methods, and it was the goal was 80% globally, and it's currently at 81% level, which is very good for the region, which is one of the regions with the best implementation rate. And regarding AGA, we're a bit below the goal, which is 78.1%. We are at 75%. So you know that with the introduction of the new 2020 protocol, some of the effective implementation percentages have changed. Then there was a presentation on the implementation of RSD and SMS, which are still a challenge in the region. Then there was an agenda presented with 6 items. Let me scroll a bit faster. At that point, we discussed the taking of the agenda item 2.1 on airport planning to a meeting this year. So we have a specific project that we will be discussing later. Then we also talked about the need to work on the aerodrome personnel training. The idea is to discuss if there is a need and the possibilities to cover this. And also, there were some other matters that were discussed during the meeting, but at this moment, we have no working papers on these aspects. We can take into account anything that you may wish to mention during these aspects pointed here. The use of photometry in aerodromes, application of the minimum staff concept and the SEI service, RESA application, the SEI team for equipment for difficult environments, and the use of English for the SEI personnel and aerodrome operations. So my proposal would be to take note of this so that some of these aspects could be discussed by the AGA experts panel after this meeting. May I interrupt you, Fabio? Some of these aspects were covered during the last RPA. Some advisory circular letters have already been presented as well. So that was in the last RPA. Well, I don't know what's the link we have with that working group, but some of these aspects were already covered by that group. Thank you, and sorry for the interruption. Thank you, Pepe. So we also talked about how convenient it was to have the convenience of liaising with other organizations, international organizations and associations to explore the opportunity to work with those specialists. We have representative of Cars and PAV here. Hopefully they can be with us during the meeting. They have an information paper to present. If we don't have the time to present it today, we'll do so tomorrow. We also invited SELAC that has an information paper, but they did not present any working papers. The proposal was to allow the states to present working papers, but there was a challenge to receive the working papers from some states, but we'll have some of them tomorrow. Well, this is regarding the summary of past meetings. Are there any comments on this item? I would also like to welcome Fernando Maida, representative of Ecuador. Welcome, Fernando. Give me 1 second, please. If there are no comments, then allow me to go to the first working paper. Well, so if we move on to agenda item 2, we have working paper 2 Have you been able to read it? This is regarding the regional aerodrome indicators and goals. The idea is to present the basic indicators and propose some goals regarding these indicators. This is presented by the Secretariat. And in the introduction, it mainly talks about the priorities of the AGA program of the regional office. As you know, this program is based on 4 priorities. The first one is aerodrome certification, which is one of the main challenges in the region, though we've had some major progress since the proposal of the Bogota Declaration in 2013. There's still a long way to go, as we will see later on.
On occasion of reducing the rate of accidents and incidents related to runway safety. The idea is to work with the states for the implementation of measures related to runway safety. And here we're working with the states in the implementation. Many of you have worked with us in the global reporting format and the runway safety teams, which is a project about to start. Priority number 3, airport planning. This priority emerged from the event we had in 2018, where we agreed on a vision so that the region could be recognized for its airport planning to obtain the benefits of air transport. And aligned with the Global Air Navigation Plan, and now with the last version of the safety plan, the idea is to identify those opportunities to work on a better airport planning to make sure that in the future we will have infrastructure that is available and appropriate. And priority number 4, more aligned to the idea that while this planning takes place, while these investments are made in infrastructure, how can we operate more efficiently? At that time, before the pandemic, when the airports were having congestion problems, we saw the need to implement the ACDM, which is part of the ASBO's, the Global Air Navigational Plan. And the idea was for this implementation to focus on some hubs, some important connection points, not necessarily all the airports. Some of them were already in the process of doing it. The idea is that the airports are already doing this to do it in a harmonized manner in the region. We didn't want that after the implementation, we would have problems of interoperability. That is, we would have problems with the connections. I think that Peru has prepared something regarding this initiative, and we shall see that later on. In the second part of this working paper, in the analysis section, we basically say that up until 2013, when we implemented the goals of the Declaration of Bogota, we did not work with the colleagues of the region in new regional goals, but rather each state has been working at its own pace regarding the possibility of implementing these parameters that I mentioned before. And since the priority, the main 2 priorities are aerodrome certification and runway safety because of their impact not only on the compliance with the regulations, but on safety. The Secretariat is proposing that we analyze the possibility of establishing new goals for aerodrome certification. Let me explain. The idea is that somehow we may work with more specific goals from the point of view of the region. Right now, I can show you that, of course, the main objective of the initiatives is a full implementation, but at present, the figures vary a lot. For instance, the implementation of aerodrome certification is a goal that we have. We want to have 100% of aerodromes with international operations. However, we currently have a 52% coverage. Some challenges that we have identified in the secretary. The first is that there are no goals per state or per year, despite the fact that states have plans. We, as a region, don't have a clearly established goals that accompany that planning. And the idea is to discuss with you the possibility of working on a regional goal associated to a goal by state. There's some states that haven't started yet, and the idea is that we establish goals per state in order to mitigate the fact that the states will work a lot on aerodrome certification and other states uh, don't start that task yet. So each one should work in this process at their own pace. And of course, identify any possibilities of support. For instance, the regional system is working right now in supporting initiatives related to certification. Regarding the implementation of GRF, we currently have a 66%. This project has a target of 100%, and it's moving forward well. States have faced some challenges, but they are trying to reach the goal. So I think it's very simple here. We don't need to put a goal per year. Those states that are in the process or are completing the process reach 100%. Please let me know if there are any comments or questions because I cannot see the hands raised. Regarding the implementation of runway safety teams, that's a new project, and we are going to present something about this. We are conducting some monthly meetings with the colleagues regarding this project. Although it hasn't started, we consider that next month we will formally start the activities. At present, there is no goal per state or per year for runway safety teams. Before, it was not a mandatory requirement, but now you should know that it's already in the past. So the states have the responsibility of implementing the runway safety teams or otherwise to publish the differences in the AIP, and the new protocol 2020 of USOAP incorporated questions related to runway safety teams. So it's important that those states that are at a level of 0%, and we have several of them, take note of the needs to start working on this initiative. The idea is that the projects will offer direct assistance under the RASPINE. Those airports that have already implemented the RSTs, the project will also support you with the implementation. Carlos? Yes, just a question. Are we going to work on these issues as a group? In other words, in the development or in to discuss the opinions we have regarding these projects, or that's it for the discussion? We won't discuss this any further. Thank you, Pepe. The idea is that once I finish presenting the paper, we open the issue for discussion. I know that Many of you have already read the paper and may have comments. No problem. The idea is to open the discussion at the end of the presentation and to see if we can reach agreement on these goals and then establish an action plan. I know that some states on some specific issues may need some assistance, and the idea is to see how we can support you. So yes, we're going to open the discussion on these issues. Just let me finish. Regarding airport planning and the implementation of ACDM, we are not proposing a specific goal in this working paper because these goals are to be defined. But the idea is also to hear from you. What is your opinion regarding these two projects and the respective goals? So there are information papers that I can present on these two projects, and the idea is to hear from you about the work in these projects. So attachment B to the paper contains some tables so that I want you to analyze. There's one table on the certification of aerodromes and the other one regarding the implementation of runway safety. In the aerodrome certification table, we have a list of the aerodromes in the SAM region and the baseline of 2022, column number 3. Right now, we have 53 aerodromes certified. We have the list of those aerodromes that when this paper was prepared, maybe more aerodromes that have received the certification, but these are the ones that we have registered. The next tables are a proposal of the Secretariat that I would like you to review. Maybe it's too much information right now, and we have time for you to process them. We don't need an answer right now, but based on your implementation plans regarding certification, the idea is to see whether these figures are real or they are too optimistic or too conservative. That's the idea of this working paper, to check with you if you think that these figures are attainable and or if they need to be changed. Also, down below, you'll see the targets for the runway safety teams. These are figures that can be reviewed. Somebody's raising their hand. Eduardo, maybe? From Argentina? Yes, Fabio, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I prefer to speak when we discuss that part of the issue. No problem. The Secretariat is trying to be informal. You can interrupt at any time. But that's it. That's what I wanted to say. These are the goals. As you see, 2025, the end of the next triennium, we are not putting 100% as a goal because we know it's a process that is not that fast. However, based on the experience, we may achieve a momentum that will allow us to reach our targets 100%. In Brazil, for instance, they are in the process of giving airports in concession, and maybe these figures will have to be moved a little. But the idea of this working paper is to promote these goals, and what would we want to see what would happen afterwards. I would say that since this meeting is an informal meeting, there will be a summary of discussions, and based on that, at a meeting of Agripicus, we will be able to present these goals based on a project F1 of Grepica's aerodrome certification, or even if you think that it is something that you need a high level commitment, we can even present it as a proposal of the meeting of directors of the SAM region. I think that we are going to have a couple of meetings of that source of this year. So basically, that's it. Eduardo, what is it that you wanted to say? Well, thank you very much, Fabio. What I wanted to say is that tomorrow I'm going to present a certification plan that we've prepared in Argentina, precisely to be completed in 2025, could be extended to 2026. We have a commitment of the states and also on the side of the operators of Argentina to achieve that goal. However, I see that we will be able to attain the goal. They've asked us to certify an airport by 2022, and we've already certified 3 this year. We can even certify 2 more before the end of the year. So in Argentina, we are fully identified with this process. I recognize that it has taken us a lot of time to start it, but as I said before, tomorrow we will present the planning in Argentina and with the commitment of the state and the operators. Also, regarding the implementation of the runway safety teams, we are quite delayed in that process. So I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to ask to work together in order to develop this tool within our states. And not only to comply with the things that starting on Wednesday, we will have to address in audits, but also to give an answer to a problem of a runway incursions, which is a problem that we have not only in our region, but everywhere in the world. So I presented this needs on the side of our state. Thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. We take notes. It would be great if these figures are too conservative. Well, we prepared this even before we had a discussion regarding the progress maze. We put only 1 airdrome to be certified in 2021, or for this year. And as you said, the process is moving very quickly in Argentina. And let's hope that this goal will be fully attained. Carlos, from Uruguay, yes, on our side, unfortunately, the problem of the pandemic forced us to delay things. We are about to start phase 4 in July, which means that in August we will have a second airdrome certified. Here it says 2022, 100% of airports are certified. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you, Pepe. Here I should highlight something. If you see these goals are established with a baseline of 104 international airdromes, but we know that some states are starting to have international operations in airdromes that are not listed here. So please, if you want to incorporate airdromes that are not included in the list, let us know so that we can plan them. It's not that we are going to include them in the plan now, but at least we should know that these figures will change in the future. Yes, Lazaro, go ahead, please. Regarding the situation in Brazil, I think that there is we made some modifications in the AOP table. In our current planning, we have 45 international aerodromes, 31 of which are certified. But as you said, we are in the end of the process of concession, and we should have 20 aerodromes. We have contemplated many airports that are not certified yet. So this planning that you have shows on your screen is quite realistic, and we can comply with this because by the end of 2024, we may have certified the last international aerodromes, which are small airports, but because of their location very close to the borders, they need to have international operations. So 45 airports right now, and we are going to send you the table already updated. So 45 international aerodromes with 31 already certified. Thank you. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you very much, Lázaro, for the information. We take note. And this is extremely important because we know that things change in the States. But our idea is that as things change, even by way of a suggestion, as you incorporate new aerodromes, you incorporate aerodromes already certified, because for those of you who are not familiar with the AOP table of the Regional Air Navigation Plan, for purposes of the ICAO processes, including the audit processes, ICAO takes into account the aerodromes that are listed in the Regional Air Navigation Plan. However, there is a challenge that we are identifying in certain regions, not only in our regions. In the AIP, there is a number of aerodromes that are international aerodromes, which are different from the ones in the air navigation plan. And this is for several reasons, even political reasons. But it's something that we want to on with you in order to align things. I want to give the floor to Ricardo Aguirre from Colombia first. Well, the same thing. We are going to incorporate only one more international airport in that table. We are going to have 12, but it's clear that we are not going to certify any aerodrome in the rest of the year. We already have a plan for 2023 and 2024. The idea is to complete 100% in those 2 years. So we'll send you the updates of the plan that we have for Colombia. So it would be 12 at the end. Thank you. We take notes. Roberto Cardosa from Chile. Thank you, Fabio. In the case of Chile, as it says there, we have 5 international aerodromes already certified. 3 are pending according to the table. We thought of doing the certification of Easter Island this year, but because of the pandemic, we've had many problems, and we are just moving in phases 1 and 2, and we would be completing phase 3. But it's very difficult to go to Easter Island to finish this year. We thought between 2022 and 2024 to complete all the international aerodromes. But as a result of the pandemic, we'll have to extend the days. We think that in 2023, we could do the south. In 2024, start with Arturo Benitez. Also, the aerodrome of Calama before the pandemic, it has international flights, Calama Lima. And Chile presented for the certification of that airport of Calama. We are working with the SRV SOP. We recently had a visit at the aerodrome for the certification trial. Because the initial visit couldn't take place because of COVID. So the visit has already taken place. We have made some progress, and we hope to finish a phase 3 soon. And we expect to finish a phases 4 and 5 this year, but we have to discuss internally whether the Calama Airport will be included in the AOP table. That's what I wanted to say, Fabio. Thank you. Thank you very much, Roberto. As I said before, the idea is to review the table because we also know that we are still in a transition period. There are still restrictions because of the pandemic. We still have COVID, but on the other hand, many restrictions are being lifted. So taking into account the current scenario, you may say that maybe you will be able to certify one in 2023, another one in 2024. But if you think that that can be extended or that it can be done faster, I would say that we should think in conservative terms and think of a scenario similar to the one we have now. If things improve later, because restrictions are lifted and we can move faster, at least we have a goal that can be achieved. The idea is to have at least a goal. And regarding what you just said, to incorporate Calama, if it's already certified at some point in time, as our colleague from Colombia and Brazil, it can be incorporated. But that's an analysis that needs to be done with other air navigation areas, of course. So thank you very much, Roberto. Anybody else? Any further comments regarding this table? Rennie, were you raising your hand? In Venezuela, we have 4 cases. I don't think we will be able to certify one this year. One is already in phase 3, but the remaining 3 still need more work, but we're working on it to see if we can certify at least 2 of the 4 that are in the process of certification, just like Colombia and Brazil. I think that we have one more international aerodrome, but in Venezuela, we have a problem with the airports. We have 4 that do not have international operations right now, and there are 2 or 3 that do not have commercial operations at the domestic level. But we have 4, and 2 may be certified this year. Thank you. Thank you, Rennie. We take note. Well, that's the idea. If you at this list is not realistic, we can change the dates. And that's why it's not necessary for you to answer right now. I ask you to analyze the table. And I also wanted to validate with you if it's valid to put goals here when we had air navigation meetings and safety meetings, the ANSF meetings that were held before. We saw this problem. Rene, go ahead, please. Thank you, Fabio. By way of a question, in the case of Bolivia, since we've changed the aerodrome provider, they are certified right now, but they need to be recertified in 2023. Should that appear in this table, in this plan, or should they be, should we keep the certified aerodromes? And regarding the implementation of the RSTs, I'm not familiar with a standard mechanism to determine when you consider that they are implemented. We have reported 100% in the 3 aerodromes with RST, but maybe it would be good to standardize things so that they may be considered as implemented, or maybe there's already a criterion to consider them fully implemented. So that's my question, Fabio. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rene. Very good comment. Let me answer to both questions. First, regarding the recertification, from the points of view of the table, it says aerodrome certification, but basically what we are measuring here is the initial certification. In other words, while you carry out the process of recertification, for sure, your airport will continue to be certified with the previous certificate. Maybe you will have to extend the certificate while you work in the new process. But unless there is a withdrawal of the certification and the aerodrome becomes a non-certified, I would say that it remains the same. In that case, even though you are carrying out a recertification process, it's as if in those states that put a deadline, the aerodrome, the certificate expires and you have to start the recertification. Unless you withdraw the certificates and you report to ICAO that that operator is no longer certified. I know that in the case of Guyana, for instance, there are aerodromes that are certified at a given frequency. So we wouldn't be changing the table. And regarding your second question, very interesting. The project that we are proposing in the RASPA, one of the goals is to work on a mechanism to measure the implementation. Right now, ICAO does not have a mechanism for implementation. I can tell you about what is done in practice in the audits. We ask for evidence that the team has been established, and some states present that evidence as a requirement in the regulations. Other states present evidence of what you say, a document that guarantees the establishment, and maybe 1 or 2 documents that verify that they have, that the teams have met. So we want to see what could be a good mechanism to verify the implementation. If we read the PANs and an effective RST, an RST that does not only mean to have coffee and prepare a document, but after the meeting, they prepare an action plan and they execute the action plan. So those are things that we want to check with you. And although we are presenting RST goals, we don't need to tell you at this meeting, because precisely that mechanism, we want to define it this year. So I take note of your comment, Rene, because it's quite valid. Rene? Yes, I was listening about the RST, and in the past meeting, we said that we believe, well, we have two airports uh, that are implemented. And according to the PQs, you should present evidence of some action. The idea is to work on any issue on the runway and identify any problems. We have airports already established with RST that have held meetings. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you, Reni. Precisely, that's our problem. There is no standard regional mechanism, so each state has its own mechanism. So if you think, if internally in your state, you require the operators that within their SMS that they should analyze the runway safety issues and that they show that if you are satisfied as a state that they the way they presented the evidence and that all the interested parties get together, you can show that to the auditor, and you should consider that as valid because right now there is no mechanism. Although there are guides of ICAO, there is no definite mechanism that says you have to present this or that. What I've normally seen is what I just said, a document of incorporation, and aside from that, evidence of meetings held. But since this is an intrinsic process of the SMS, it's open. We have Lázaro asking for the floor, and then Carlos Garcia. Lázaro, please. Thank you, Fabio. I would like to share with you the experience that we had in Brazil in the implementation of the RSD at the aerodromes. What happened was that we had all the guidelines for the implementation. We provided advice so that the committees could be installed. And so we had an experience in Brasilia at the international airport where we went to the airport because it's close to ANAC. We went 2 or 3 times per week during the 3 months in order to implement RSD. We need many meetings with many stakeholders, especially with ATS operators and general aviation organization. But the implementation of the RSD depends on the development of an implementation plan, an action plan in order to improve safety at the airports, which implies many things. So we have to develop that plan, and the RST starts with the approval of the plan, and at all the meetings, we monitor the implementation of that plan. If there is no plan for the medium or long term for such implementation, the RST meetings become very bureaucratic. So that's what we did in Brasilia. we put all the material at the disposal of ANAC so that other airports could replicate that experience. But we had to provide advice to all of them so that they could do the implementation. And in fact, the RSCs do not meet their objectives because there are no plans for improving safety at the airports. That's what we have noted in our experience. Thank you very much, Fabio. Lázaro, thank you very much. And you said something very interesting, and it's that some RSTs are not fulfilling their function. And unfortunately, we hear that from the industry because we received reports from some airlines from the industry in the sense that at some airports, they have had serious problems with the runway. And when we check the statistics, the aerodrome has an RST already implemented. So when we ask the airline, have you been involved in these RSCs? They say no. So it would seem that, as Rene said at the beginning, it's only on the paper. They organize the RSC just to comply with the regulations, but they are not having a multidisciplinary meeting, inviting all the those who need to participate. And there is no action plan, no corrective action plan to mitigate the risks, at least to identify the risks. So those are things that are missing. And these, we want to work on this with you. Thank you, Lázaro. Pepe is asking for the floor. Thank you. I think a working paper will be presented at the RASPA. I want to make a comment regarding that paper, which includes all the landmarks that can be applied in the region so that each state may designate focal points, prepare an action plan, and so forth, as we saw at the previous meeting. According to our experience, the committees at the two airports, because we have two airports, have been established, and we control them on the basis of the documents prepared. And they discuss the improvement of markings through signaling. We prepared a plan, and new markings were installed. Now we also have asked for the GRF, and they discussed the incorporation of the GRF. Of course, we need to do the follow-up. And as you said at the previous meeting, and if I recall correctly, that was also mentioned at the RASPA, each state can do the follow-up regarding compliance with the landmarks, and do the follow-up in each state. So that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pepe. I take note of this because I think that for this meeting, unfortunately, I did not prepare an information paper regarding that project, but it's very easy to prepare one. So we will present tomorrow some details of the project for those of you who are not familiar with the RSC project, and also to give you the opportunity of participating. I think that Rene, you could participate in the project from what I heard, and I don't want to put you in the spotlight, but I think that the colleagues of Brazil, we also discussed with them the possibility of working on this mechanism.
Because at the end, it is not simply a matter of measuring implementation, but without the practice of RSTs, right? Roberto from Chile, over to you. Thank you, Fabio. Well, just to add a little bit more about the work we've started in Chile regarding RST, what I can tell you is that at the end of 2020, we arranged the beginning of the process, and it was officially formalized through a document on the 24th of November of 2020. That document was sent to the 15 operators that are members of the primary network of Chile. And obviously that includes the aerodromes and the AOP tables in accordance with resolution 37.6 of the 37th ICAO Assembly in 2010. And we were based on the advisory circular sent by ICAO through RSV SOP 253010 of 18th of May 2018 to issue a technical instruction information and to advise those 15 aerodromes in the startup of their process, which should have started on the 16th of December of 2020. As Lazaro was saying, there are some difficulties at the beginning, but the work has been moving on gradually with the establishment of multidisciplinary teams, including aerodrome operators and all those that are somehow involved in the maneuvers area. And as established, the first thing to see is an action plan, so that each one may work on its own area of expertise. But what's been missing a bit is the setting of an internal regulation in Chile to implement the process. Though progress has been made, we need to work on the standards in order to develop that 820. That was all, Fabio. Thank you. Thank you, Roberto. Yes, since some states have implemented some specific standards or regulations, others, they just simply think that RST is part of the RMS of or SMS of the operator. So it's just through a circular letter, the operators know that this is the way it should be done. For example, the European standard states that RST is one of the mandatory committees of SMS. I forget the law regulation, whether I really forget. Did we include a specific mention? Well, it is in Appendix 1 of ARNAV 153 on SMS. It is not explicitly stated that it's one of the committee, but since it's within the SMS appendix, then in a way that's how it is interpreted. So that's a requirement that an RST is to be implemented. Yeah, maybe we could do it more specifically if necessary. Well, it's a project I would like to propose to the panel colleagues. But not only because of that, but also because of everything covered under Appendix 1 and the new amendment, or the most recent amendments to Annex 19, Document 58. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Roberto. Lazaro? Lazaro? Yes, sorry. Yes, Lazaro, over to you. Now, regarding the implementation of RST in the SAM region, with the participation of Brazil, what we understand is that RST is like a byproduct or an evolution of aerodrome safety, which is identification and implementation of SMS, and then the implementation of RST. In our case, all the RSTs of Brazil were implemented in the airport. But this does not mean that we need to avoid installing RST in those airports that have not been identified or certified, but there needs to be somebody taking care of SMS at the airport, because that person will be the secretary of RST and will conduct all the meetings and the preparation of all the explanatory and guidance material for all participants. So for Brazil to participate in this effort to assist aerodromes to implement RST, our agency is willing to collaborate, but in the second half of 2022, we are now really busy and we have no time to dedicate to that. But Fabio, it would be good if we got more details regarding the program in order to have an idea about how much improvement it needs to be done in this project. Thank you. Thank you, Lazaro. Well, yes, I hope that in the working paper, I can give you some more detailed information about how to support. There are some hands raised. Roberto, I think that was your old hand. Roberto, right? Oh, yeah. I already took the floor. Thank you. All right, so then it's Pepe and Eduardo. Oh, Pepe no longer has his hand raised. All right, Eduardo. Yes, thank you, Fabio. I just wanted to say that REC 153 regarding RST is under Appendix 6 on guidance and control of surface movements. And this week, or not more than 20 days, we're issuing a technical circular based on the regional system for RST. So I reiterate my request to you and to those colleagues that are already working on the implementation process, more assistance on this part. Thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. We take note of your request. Then Luis Herrera and Carlos. Luis? Yes, Fabio. I just wanted to make a comment here. After the system helped Panama to establish RST in the Tucumán International Airport, though it's in a certification process, there already is an RST established, and this has helped us to take this to the Pacifico Panama Airport, and there is an document that's establishing the meeting. So the Civil Aviation Authority is participating as an advisory team. So all the other airports, regardless of the fact that they are certified or not, they will be getting this part. That's my contribution, Fabio. That's my comment. Thank you. Well, before giving the floor to Pepe, and then after Pepe, I think we will take a break after Pepe. What I wanted to say is that, well, yes, RST, and if you are certified and SMS implemented, it should happen naturally. But some comments were saying, if we analyze the RST process is maybe the simplest process in SMS. That is, SMS tries to identify hazards, to manage safety risks. Maybe in the area where we have more possibilities to have a severe event on the runway, because that's where there's more energy, there's more velocity involved. So God forbid, airports can have fatal accidents, but if that happens, it's more likely to be on a runway. So if the RST is well implemented and it works as it should, maybe in the beginning, it's the beginning of an SMS that could be expanded to other airports, and the event would be less serious, less severity, with less severity. That's just a comment. Pepe now. Well, I think, well, we use the SRBSOP circular that clarifies this really well. It recommends the implementation of RSTs in the follow-up of resolution A376 of the 37th Assembly of ICAO held in 2010 that urges member states to make efforts to have the implementation of RSTs. Now, if this can be improved with what you will be presenting tomorrow, well, I think that's quite well in order to encourage states to start setting up this kind of team, right? Thank you very much. Thank you, Pepe. We take note of your comment as well. Well, colleagues, so we would be closing at this point this working paper. So what I propose to you is to go over the contents of the certification goals proposal to make sure whether those are feasible goals that can be scheduled by 2025. And regarding RST, my suggestion would be to discuss the project first without setting any goals for the time being until we know what mechanism we want to implement in the region, because it may take some time. So maybe we could work on those goals within a project, and then in another session next to SAMAGA, we could do this. Well, the Secretariat had proposed a conclusion. This is a draft conclusion. The idea would be to change it in the event we reach an agreement on the certification goals, to propose it as a result of this meeting, and we could submit it to Grapicas or to the directors meeting. So do you agree with this proposal? Do you find it acceptable? The proposal being made by the Secretariat? If you're asking, Fabio, yes, I agree. Yes, I see a couple of hands raised. Yes, we agree. Thank you, Fabio. We agree as well, Fabio. Yes. Well, thank you very much. It is 10:43 Lima time. Shall we take a break until 1100 hours Lima time to have some coffee, and then we'll be wrapping up at 12:30, right? So would that be okay for you? Yes, perfect, Fabio. Great, Fabio. Thank you. Very well then, let's restart our meeting and let me start recording. Thank you very much for coming back. Going back to agenda item 2, now we have some information papers. There's an interesting paper from ICAO's headquarters. I will describe it in English because that's the language in which it's published. But before doing so, as Pepe was saying, if you search www.icao./RASCPA, you go to RASCPA website, Regional Aviation Safety Group. Just give me 1 second, please. In this group, there is a link of meetings that takes you to the meetings. Meetings and events, you have the plenary and then SCC, which is the executive committee. When you click on the 37th meeting, you will have the working paper 7 draft proposal of RST implementation. And here you have the working paper mentioned by Pepe. I'll present an information paper similar to this one and also commenting on the conclusion of the meeting. 2 important things. First of all, that this project is of the CARSAM region, so it's a project that we need to do together. My colleague Jaime Calderon, as you may know, of the North American and Central American and Caribbean region, retired last February, but ICAO completed the recruitment process for the new AGA officer, and now the paperwork is being completed at this point, and there will be somebody appointed next month. So, can you hear me? Yes? I think I was having some connection problems. Thank you, Pepe. So hopefully next month, we'll be having the new officer that will be working on this project. We'll be talking about this tomorrow, but let me just show you this part here. This is the proposal that we are presenting. The funds we are requiring, and the conclusion was accepted, but down below, you have the draft document, and let me scroll down a bit fast. This contains 2 important things. The purpose of the project, the main purpose is to establish and implement effective local RSTs. The keyword here is effective in international aerodromes selected for 2025. Selected, we said selected originally because the population is quite large. There are many aerodromes, so the idea is to select those aerodromes for purposes of this project. That is, select based on the safety risk they have. So then we have specific objectives. Group 1, aerodromes without RST, and group 2 are airports with RST. And as Pepe was saying, here is to establish a mechanism of indicators to make sure that the RSTs are effective in those aerodromes. The deliverables, there are 5, highlighting the second one on effectiveness mechanism. We want to have a monitoring tool to measure the deliverables of RST to guarantee that they are active and effective. This is something that has not been done worldwide, so maybe we are the first region in doing so. This would be a great chance to provide something that could be replicated by other regions. You can go over this project, like there are other things like the deliverables, what we want to do to provide direct assistance to the states. So we also want to work on the specific training of RST. So there are several interesting things here. Well, that is what I wanted to say. And now let me go to the information paper. Just give me 1 second. Where did I leave it? It's not this. It's this one. Information paper number 2. It was prepared by ICAO's headquarters to present the work being conducted at headquarters. Let me do it really quickly because it's just an information paper. But I find it interesting. We should see it together because if you have any questions or comments, I could deal with them. The first one is regarding the amendments on Annex 14. As you know, the last amendment was Amendment 17. Applicability date November the 3rd, and it's related to rescue and firefighting for general aviation. Now, what happened was that with the current rule, some states thought that for all aerodromes, regardless of their size of operations, aerodromes should have rescue and firefighting teams dedicated to the aerodrome. But according to the amendment, for small and exclusively general aviation aerodromes, this created a major burden, especially financial burden to operators. So the new text basically said that the requirement is for aerodromes with commercial operations. So this opens up a whole different outlook, and for the requirement would be more flexible for small aerodromes, right? Those that are exclusively GA aerodromes. And this is hand in hand with Annex 6 that gives responsibility to the pilot commanding the aircraft to decide based on its SMS to decide whether to operate an aerodrome with an aerodrome that has rescue and firefighting teams that are smaller. But this is going to be discussed in the AGA experts panel, I think. So this will or may generate a change in the law and other standards. But in essence, it's to provide more flexibility. Then this information paper also talks about the updates to guidance materials. Document 9157 part 2 has an amendment. This is regarding volume 1, and then part 3 is related to pavements. That was fully updated. There's an unedited version available on ICAO net. Those representatives who do not have access to ICAO net, if they want a copy of this document, just send me an email and I'll provide it to you. It just basically talks about the fact that we'll be working with you early next year, I think. But this is an important aspect to be taken into account, which is the implementation of ACR-PCR. Unfortunately, we do not have ACPA representatives in the meeting, but the idea is for them to work together with the states as a technical forum to assist in the implementation of this change that will be applicable in November 2024. We do not want any urgent last minute rush. This is an interesting technical aspect because it will not be a number of classification, but just a rating. So you need to re-estimate PCRs. The question is if this part is in Spanish. I think so. It's published in all ICAO documents, but since this is an unedited version, it's still in English only. We can work in the panel, and if necessary, well, I'll be giving more work to Rodrigo. But the thing is that we need to review the most specific aspects of the document. What we usually wait is to have the Spanish version until it's published. We wait so as not to work more. But if you want, I can send you the airport design panel information. Well, there are some contributions in the chat. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. Then we have the amendment 1 to document 9157 and visual 8. That's part 4. And this is something interesting. Here we have some colleagues and currently ICAO is working on the update of document 9232, which is IBIS. It's a manual that was even withdrawn from ICAO net. Just give me 1 second, please. Sorry, I was saying that document 9332 of IBIS is being reviewed. It's a work in progress because, as you know, the document talked about an old language programming language. So there's a lot of work being done on this document. In addition to that, you know that ICAO is urging the states to report on bird strikes. So you see here, bird strike reporting form. So there are many things that are being done regarding IBIS, but I repeat, this is still work in progress, nothing official yet, nothing ready yet. And then we have 2.3, the ICAO high-level conference on ICAO 2019. They talk about the oversight of ground handling, the constellation of emergency response plans in a single annex. This is something being reviewed by ICAO to have documents that include not only emergency response plans, not only of air accidents, but also public health. But there's a long way to go still. And then there's also work being done on provision related to assistance to accident victims and their families. This is basically covered by ACI and IATA guidance material. Are there any questions? If so, please interrupt me because I cannot see any hands raised on my screen. 2.4, ADOP fourth panel meeting held in February 2022, they discussed some relevant aspects, like, for example, the obstacle limitation surfaces. As you know, Chapter 4 of the OLS is changing a lot, and we have some information about that. Some members of this task force also participate in the system, and basically the idea of this new obstacle limitation surface is to take more into account the needs of the stakeholders, specifically the urban developers.
So we are still thinking that the effective days will be July 2024 with an applicability date 23rd November 2028 to allow these important changes in national regulations. Regarding aerodrome design, there are some corrections in the annex. There is a correction in the width of the graded portion of Code D text strips. It's a modification that is correcting the annex. Eduardo, yes? Yes, sorry for the interruption. When will we know these proposals? Do you mean everything that we're showing or any specific one? The ones to Annex 14 regarding the obstacle limitation services, what you're just mentioning. Well, what we can do is to share more specific information in this regard, not final, so it may change. That's the problem with these things. In fact, this year in the work plan of the regional project 901, 06901, we have an event, a virtual meeting on obstacle limitation services for the end of this year, and more or less in November. Why November? Because in that way, it gives time for these things to mature, because although there's an agreement, I think that Jorge Warner is participating, and he can give us more information in this regard. But I understand that this work is still under discussion, so I wouldn't venture to share something that will change afterwards. However, we're going to have that seminar on obstacle limitation services, and together with the people working on that, we are going to obtain more information. Since the effective date is July 2024. Yes, this is Jorge. The group is discussing the surfaces. Until then, we won't have any definite information. There are some tables that are being changed, some values contained therein, and what we have are OFC surfaces, obstacle-free surfaces, and that is already that already has a date. Microphone, please. Jorge, did you finish? You muted the microphone. Now we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Well, I don't know if Jorge has connection problems or we heard everything. And That's why I said I didn't dare to share something more specific. But last year we had a meeting on obstacle limitation services, and we want to hold one at the regional level now. Can you hear me? Yes. We are discussing some surfaces. And the ones we have defined are the obstacle-free surfaces, OFC, OFS, and the OFS obstacle limitation, OFS. Some tables are being changed in order to adjust the dimensions of these surfaces. So we still don't have an agreement of these surfaces. Thank you, Jorge. And as Jorge says, that's the problem. What we can do, Eduardo, is I can give you information of what we have available, and we are going to have this seminar by the end of this year in order to analyze the changes. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you. Then, in addition to the reviewing the arithmetic modification, they are also reviewing the width for Code 3 non-instrument runways, with an interesting reduction of the half portion of the strip from 75 to 55 meters. Regarding airport operations, we're also discussing a future amendments, proposal of amendments to ground handling, but basically based on safety. And last year we had a ground handling meeting. So if you want more information, I can send you the link. There is even a recording of that meeting. Regarding visual aids for air navigation, we are working on the requirements for threshold markings for paved non-instrument code 1 and 2 runways in order to align the requirements so that we may have aligned requirements. Harmonization of aerodrome lighting requirements for CAT 2 operations below 350 meters RVR. CAT 2 operations. The visual range for CAT 2 operations dropped from 350 to 300, but despite that reduction, no changes were made in lighting requirements. Some clarifications in 10.5.1, talking about the design value, that term that we find in the annex on several occasions. And something else we asked you, and some states have already implemented, there's the issue of the runway distance, remaining distance signs, which is something that is being revised. The states are exerting pressure to include it in the annex. So probably they will be included as a recommendation, probably, not as a requirement. Fabio, sorry. This is Lázaro from Brazil. Regarding the runway distance remaining, we are implementing these signs at the Congonha airport. So we are using the FAA guidelines just like the other countries. We did a 300-meter separation between signs and the ends, with a bigger separation up to the end of the runway. What happened was that the aircraft operators want more information about this for the implementation. The signs have not been properly implemented, but they will be implemented probably this year. And the aircraft operators are questioning some of these signs because they say that the pilots wouldn't know how much time they have to reach the end of the runway. But it's a simple thing. And we are discussing with the aircraft operators this issue. Thank you. Thank you, Lazaro. And I think that that experience will be very helpful in the future for those states that want to do this implementation. I would say that at the beginning, it will be a recommendation, but depending on the progress, I don't know if it will become a standard. I don't think so, but that's only my opinion. What is true is that it has shown some benefits, especially in reducing runway excursions and an increase in the pilot's situational awareness. Another interesting thing is Chapter 7, Volume 1, Annex 14, the issue of the signs for construction areas, because there are many construction processes that have resulted in accidents with aircraft, because we have identified that the signs are not too visible and cause problems. Regarding Volume 2, some colleagues from Suriname also said that on Friday, we had a webinar on heliport design, and there mention was made of some new things, some things already introduced in Annex 14, Volume 2 in the heliport manual, but also work is being carried out in the certification requirements and SMS at heliports within that same annex. So these are issues that are not mentioned here, but in the seminar, the members of the panel mentioned that they are planning to include them by 2024. So for those states that have heliports, international heliports, they can have these certification requirements. Regarding the PANS aerodromes, we're working in a new chapter regarding obstacle evaluation and control in order to be in line with the amendments to Annex 14, Volume 1, Chapter 4. So the idea is to have a full package. The amendment is approved for the annex together with the guidelines, the guidance material and the plans. That with respect to what is currently underway. There are 4 new initiatives here. The first one is that the AOP accepted a new job card on guidance for airports in mountainous areas. And this can be very interesting, especially for those states that have operations in Andean regions and mountainous areas, where it's complicated to have runways that comply with the annex, runways that, rather aerodromes that do not comply with the annex. And so they are going to work on these new altiports. This initiative was from the Asia Pacific region, because as you know, they have the most interesting airports regarding altitude, but we have that same reality in our region, maybe not for international operations, but definitely we do have aerodromes of this type. Then there's a new job card regarding the evolution of a collaborative decision making. As you know, a CDM has several blocks, and the final block is what we call the total airport management, TAM, where the entire airport is connected. So the idea is that under the door-to-door concept being proposed, information will be available from the moment the passenger is in the check-in. All that information shows fees the decision-making process for aircraft operations. And this is extremely interesting. Work is being carried out on this. They're just starting. And another interesting issue that has already been accepted in the panel is the issue of the vertiports, which are these ports or facilities for receiving the new urban air mobility vehicles, air taxis, drones, or electrical aircraft that are used in the cities to carry passengers and cargo, as was explained in the seminar. First, it will be for manned aircraft with a pilot on board, but the idea is that all these requirements will also address those unmanned aircraft that we believe in a couple of years. I don't know if my children will see that, definitely, and my grandchildren, but definitely that technology is moving very quickly, and we will soon have requirements for this type of operation. So this is job card that is very interesting because these facilities, although very similar to the traditional heliports, have different characteristics. So some adjustments will be needed. And the last job card has to do with provisions for design, certification, and operations of water aerodromes. I don't know if any state here has an aerodrome of that type, but ICAO is already working on this at the global level. Sorry for the interruption, Fabio. We don't have them, but they have started asking about operations on water, and I'm sure that it's a discussion on this matter will be very interesting and very useful. Any state that has a request from the industry or from their airport operators, let us know, because the headquarters is already working on this. And this proposal came from a proposal made by Asia Pacific. You know that that area is full of islands in the South Pacific. So I guess that's the reason for this. And they have already made some progress. They even have some draft regulations on this issue, only in English for the time being. But if the region is, we can work it within the panel or through another initiative. Eduardo? Lázaro? Sorry, Eduardo is asking for the floor first. Lázaro, go ahead. Okay, Lázaro. Thank you, Eduardo. Regarding water aerodromes, Brazil is starting to work on the publication of rules of these aerodromes because in Brazil, you all know, and also in Colombia and Peru, there are many remote areas, small communities where there is no other way of communication. There is no means of communication with them. except by water. So we are developing regulations for the implementation of these aerodromes in the Amazon region. Thank you. Thank you, Lázaro. Eduardo, any comments? Yes. Just as Carlos Rivera said, we are very interested on this issue because we have some aircraft that are operating which are amphibious, and we've had to solve this problem. So it would be very good for the region to discuss this matter, and we will be paying attention to see how we can address the issue of these new airdromes. Thank you, Eduardo. We take due note. Maybe this is something interesting for the panel. Ricardo Aguirre from Colombia. Thank you, Fabio. Yes, the industry has also requested, has had a lot of activity with hydroports. And we have had a problem because we have two entities in the States that address the spaces. And the problem we've had is who's the owner of the water bodies. There are two sets of regulations for water bodies. So that's where we've found some difficulties. We started with Asian regulations. We translated them into Spanish in order to implement them in Colombia. But when we started applying it, we found that problem, how the authorities in each of the airspaces have their own rules. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing your experience, Ricardo. We take due note, and that's something in which we can contribute to the discussion. I'll take note of that because I can discuss it with my colleagues. Maybe they can ask some questions. If there are some other international organizations like ICAO related to aviation, I don't know if the maritime organization is addressing that issue. Interesting, interesting topic. Thank you. Other related matters, they are reviewing together with the Flight Operations Task Force, they are reviewing the definition of runway. And this is interesting because we even saw something about this in the AGA panel, the changes in the definition of runways. They are trying to define that through this panel. It's a joint work between ADOP and the Flight Operations panel. Also, the airport emergency plans and the assistance to air crash victims. We are planning to discuss this within the plans in part 7 of document 9137, dates back to 1991, so kind of old. And also, we have the joint work between the ADOP and the remotely piloted aircraft systems panel, the RPASP. It's a topic that is also being addressed, how the operation of these aircraft has an impact on the airspace used by manned aviation. Also, ICAO is working on provisions related to unauthorized drone operations at aerodromes. And this is interesting because there is already the documentation available from IATA and ACI regarding the management of incidents with drones at aerodromes. For instance, what happened at the airport of Hardwick, people were using drones for filming aircraft while taking off. So it's extremely dangerous because those are unauthorized operations close to the protected airspace of the obstacle limitation surfaces. Marilena? Yes, thank you, Fabio. Yes, we are working on an issue related to the non-use of drones around airports. But I wanted to mention that we are analyzing the possibility of conducting some studies regarding the limitation of drones in order to mitigate bird hazard at aerodromes, because I think that if it's being controlled by the people at the airport, it could be quite beneficial to control bird hazards. Thank you. We take note. Yes, the issue of unauthorized use by outside sources, but the other thing is the use of drones within the airport by authorized people. They want to use drones for calibration of visual aids or for runway inspections. They want to use drones for the airlines when they are parked to reach parts of the aircraft that are not easy to reach. We don't have any regulations in that regard, so we take note of that. ICAO is also working on it with the RPAS task force. Another news is the work of ICAO headquarters regarding IPACs. Together with ACI, ICAO is working on an IPAC for the certification of aerodromes. It's a product that would seem to be similar to what we already do in the regional system with the trials, but I think that of a smaller scope. We're working on it, and I think that the lessons learned in the regional system could help in the work being carried out at the headquarters. And then we have the preparation for the assembly. As you know, we have the 41st session of the ICAO assembly in September, and there are some issues that are going to be submitted. And here you can see the website in case you want to have more information. So basically, this is the information paper by headquarters. Sorry, I presented it in English, but that's the original language. So we wanted to present it in English, but it's also available in Spanish. Any comments? Any questions before moving on? Yes, Fabio, I have a comment regarding airports in mountainous areas. It's an initiative of the Asia Pacific region, but it involves many airports in this part of the continent because of the similar characteristics. I think that we should consider also aircraft of more than 5,700 kilograms. In Asia Pacific, it was for aircraft of less than 5,700 kilograms. So that as a preliminary idea regarding this presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Renee. I take note of that because let me jot it down. Because the experts are getting together to discuss this, and I think that it would be interesting to at least discuss this issue or consider the possibility of discussing this issue, especially based on the problems that some airports have had with aircraft of more than 5,700 kilograms of takeoff mass. So thank you very much, Renee.
Very well then, if there are no further comments, the paper is available. Let's go to information paper number 5. Give me 1 second, please, to show you information paper 5. All right. Information paper 5. Its first version talks about the indicators and dashboard. It's a draft. It's very simple. It's just a matter of showing you the work being done and ask you if you have any comments on this. If you go to this link that are in the working paper, let me click on one of them. You'll see a small dashboard. We are preparing in the region. What's the intention? Well, on many occasions, we are requested to provide information on the aerodrome certification status and the implementation of RSD and some other measures. We were talking about aerodrome certification goals, but they always ask us about the current status. So the idea is to have that information available in a more dynamic fashion. If you go to the website of the regional office, there's just a short list of states and aerodromes, but here, this dashboard, the idea is to provide a bit more information about the status per state on the certification parameters. For example, if we go here, well, you can do it by state, different kinds of filtering by type of airport or even by operator. You can select any of those. So we're always updating this because we do know that operators keep changing, and then the certification status. Then we have a list of aerodromes. And then you have the percentage per state. And below you have the number per, or the increase per year. You see the increase in the region on a yearly basis. In 2019, we were going really well until the pandemic happened, dropped. So we are going into an upward trend again. So hopefully that will continue. And then on the map, you can see the status of the aerodromes, and the size of the bubble shows you the level of traffic. For example, aerodromes with the highest level of traffic have the largest bubbles. You see, so for example, if you want to select by state, that is, let's go to Peru, for example, then you would see Peru's aerodromes, and the list of aerodromes, international aerodromes would show up, and then here you have the status. Well, easy. A simple way to have information and it's available in a more dynamic fashion. Work is also being done on a similar one for our AST, but as I said before, if we decide to wait and work on the goals in a different way, maybe we could just remove it until we work on them. Any comments on this? Because it's the only piece of information we have in this paper. Though it's an information paper, we're asking the states and representatives to see if they can provide any other type of information, if they wish to do so. The floor is open for comments. Very well then. Then let's move on to the next paper. All right, the next one is information paper 9 that talks about USWAP CMA monitoring for the SAM region. The SAM region has the highest percentages of effective implementation in the world, almost 82%. Hopefully it can increase this year. In the AGA area, the current average is around 73%. And this figure was slightly higher, but when the protocol questions raised, well, there was a change to the new 2020 version. And these are updated figures of the SAM region taken from the ICAO's website, including the average. What's the objective? Though the figures are quite good, and regionally speaking, we have an average of 73%. That figure could even improve, but we want to show you this table because there are several states that have not had any USWAP activities for years, especially audits. There have been states that have received many RSVMs, but they have not been receiving any full audits in years. So this is important just to highlight the fact that these states, if they're not doing it now, these states should keep on updating their corrective action plans, check the new questions, just to make sure that we're up to date with the new protocol and that we are getting ready for a future audit. Though ICAO does not necessarily conduct audit activities, like say, if you haven't been audited in 20 years, 10 years, ICAO will audit you. No, that's a risk analysis that's related to the level of operations and the growth of some other parameters, but the idea is to focus on those states that have not had any of this kind of activity in years. And then if we go down below in the analysis we conducted, the average effective implementation goes around these figures. So we're doing quite well. C1, C2, and C5. Well, we could say that they're almost all covered by the AGA monitoring. There are still some more missing in C4, C6, C7. The rate will be increasing, of course. But for example, we need still to solve safety problems and surveillance aspects. C4 is related to qualified technical personnel. That matter was covered during the last meeting. And maybe there's something we need to work on. In fact, during the RSP top, this was mentioned at some point. We are thinking about working on a model training program. As I was saying a while ago, let me scroll up again, those states without any activity for a while. Now, the way to be prepared, to be updated for future activities is if we review the corrective action plan of the state. Let me show you a table here. Of course, it is not a comparative table because each state has different levels of implementation, caps, and what have you. But the thing is that many states have caps in process, but they have not been completed because they need evidence. They lack evidence. So in addition to writing the cap, you should do an internal exercise to compile evidence, to store all the evidence possible to have these caps, because many of these caps, or much of the evidence in these caps cannot be stored a year before the audit. You see, so my recommendation to those states that have not done so to start working on a work plan. Now, regarding other analysis, the self-assessments completion, well, as you know, caps are the corrective action plans of those protocols related to the last activity. So if they need a corrective action plan, well, we need to work on getting evidence for that. This is very good if you're going to be receiving an ICVM. But if a state is going to have an audit, you need to deal with all the questions. So it's very important to take some time and review all the self-assessments, make sure that they are fully updated. A good thing about this region is that most states have self-assessment levels above 90% and with late recent review dates in 2021, 2022. So it seems that most of the region is doing quite well, but there are some states that do not review their self-assessments from 2018 and some even from 2013, and they have very low percentages. And this is not good if you are going to be facing a new audit soon. So this paper invites the colleagues to work on these self-assessments in order to reach the regional SAM plan, according to which each state should work on an annual average increase. If we have a baseline of 73% by the year 2025, that percentage should go up to 80.5%. So the idea then is to always be reviewing the OLF, or the online framework, to be up to date. Let me highlight the fact that the regional office of ICAO has a program to assist the states through the ProSAM 001 procedure. Some of you are familiar with it, and it's done with the MCMC of the state, but the idea is for the state to gradually review the OLF on a monthly basis so as not to have such a big burden, and you can include it in your tasks. In addition to ProSAM, you also know that the regional office has an assistance program through the regional program. Some states have used this support. Well, this would be the information paper number 9. Any comments? Jorge? Yes, Fabio, can you hear me? Yes, we can. Thank you. Just to share an experience in Brazil, we have 2 aeronautical authorities. We have the military authority and the civil authority. So we take the protocol of use of, say, the PQs. With the PQs, we divide the responsibilities, and we are mapping who is accountable for responding to BQs and the evidence. And we reached a conclusion that there is a need to have the participation of other stakeholders that can help the Brazilian USOAP team to respond to the PQs. And that's a task we have. And it's would be for 1 year, and we have to be doing this work all the time in order to provide all the evidence, not only regarding the PQs, but also the checklist compliance, or the compliance checklist, and other ICAO aspects. Thank you. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you for your comment and for sharing the experience. Yes, this requires teamwork. Rodrigo, over to you. Yes, Fabio, dear colleagues, I just wanted to say something regarding USOAP. Well, as Fabio said, in the regional system, upon request of the states, we can provide assistance using our expertise on audits to help the state get ready for the audit. Well, based on recent experience we've had in the provision of this kind of assistance, sometimes the AGA area of the state is directly involved, and sometimes it is not involved in the preparation of USOAP, but sometimes it's under the SMCAC. Somebody different from the AGA office, and at some moment it will reach the AGA office, and they'll have to sit together to be ready for the audit. Some months before the audit, maybe 2 or 4, 6 months before. But in our experience, when preparing for the audit, there are some things that are not just a matter of having evidence of the process or the structure for the process. Sometimes it is not the right kind of structure, and that needs some adjustments, and that adjustment may take a long time and sometimes even years. So I'd like to tell you this so that you can be aware of this. It's a matter of implementing the processes. So whenever an audit comes up, the area is prepared. What for? To have a way to provide evidence of the activities conducted. And the problem very often is that the records and the way everything is recorded is not in the way to enable to generate evidence automatically. So the level of effective implementation we have in AGA, as Fabio said, well, I can make some comments on this because I am somehow part of the problem or maybe the solution. And what I can say is that many states have a high level of effective implementation in AGA, with audits conducted in 2009, 2008, 10, 2013. And after that, there are ICVMs that do not decrease the level of implementation. Maybe it goes up or maybe it's the same, but some new audits have started and they will be replacing the results that we had in previous audits. So it will start from scratch. So like this year we had Colombia, Argentina. So we're talking about new audits. And in new audits, we have a different situation. These will not be the same criteria. The version of the protocol has already changed twice. We had one in 2017 and now another one in 2020. So the annexes and the documents have all changed. They have new amendments. So we have other criteria, other parameters for auditors to assess compliance of PQs. So a state may feel at ease thinking, oh, now I have 75, 80%. If an audit comes, maybe I can go up to 85%. No, you may drop to 10, 20, 30. If a new audit comes up, it depends on the status of the state. Hopefully, this won't happen to any state in the region, but the thing is that the percentage may drop. So there is no guarantee. It's not just because the state is okay now based on an audit conducted some 10 years ago, and then there was an RVSM, doesn't mean that this will continue to be good, because if there's another audit, we're talking about a different story, a different start. So I just wanted to warn you about this. And sorry, I didn't want to cause any alarm, but the thing is that the idea, I mean, the picture is different. We don't even know what the auditor may be thinking of. And I say this because if you have this kind of audit preparation in your state, well, you need to start thinking about the effective implementation in the system. We need to keep the LARs and the guidance material and all that all harmonized with Annex 14, Annex 19, and the ICAO's guidance documents like PANS or other ICAO documents. But the thing is that when the state needs to have the actual implementation, especially critical element 6, 7, 8, very often it's work to be done by the states. Well, we can provide some support, and there are colleagues in the region that are experts in this, and we can do the connection, but it's work pertaining to the state. Of course, many states do it, I know that, but to have a procedure structure to be able to record this in the right manner, that's a different story, because the idea is to show evidence to the auditor that we do it. And that is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you. Thank you, Rodrigo. Yes, indeed. Well, at least ICAO is providing OLF to create that culture, right, of continuous review. Roberto, over to you. Thank you, Fabio. Yes, I just wanted to say, as Jorge from Brazil was saying, we're also working in Chile. And we started a month ago to review the PQs related to certification. And not only are we covering the question itself, but as we've seen in practice, well, we decided to work for a couple of weeks, but we've been working for 1 month already. And then we need to cover the response to the question and also the areas. And we need then to compare after answering the question. We need to take into account the scope of the regulation related to the question so that the response is actually focused on the specific aspect. There's several notes we've taken for the next work to be done. It's very important to be able to be focused on the response to the questions, the PQRs. Thank you. Thank you very much, Roberto. Ricardo, over to you. Thank you, Fabio. Yes, very quickly, let me tell you about our experience. We finished our audit about a month and a half ago. And the important thing was our preparation. We've been preparing this audit almost 3 years. We had lots of fronts to cover. We had lots of things to do. But the first thing we did was not just to do our work and see what happens. No, thanks to the support of the regional system, we tried to see how we were to answer the questions and do the audit. Something that we did was to have a work team of about 15 people on the audit. We have staff from each one of the areas, and we took into account how the response were to be answered. How the questions were to be answered and how to prepare the aspects. And there were people out of the group, people that could ask whether what we were preparing as evidence met the request made in the PQ. And those people made us work really hard because for almost 2 years, we never had any answer that would fully satisfy them. So the thing is that these people would tell us, hey, look at this, make sure you can correct it, see if you can improve it, check this out, see if it can be improved and things like that. So that helped us a lot to evolve. And we had around 3 or 4 technical assistance events during the whole process, assistance from the regional system. And at the end, when the auditor came, he started asking lots of things that were not in the evidence, but it was in the evidence. It already existed. It was in a document. It was somewhere else in the process. And so the auditor saw that everything was working as a process. It's not that we just prepared a table of tasks, but rather he saw that everything was working really well. So whatever he asked us, whether if it was related to a certified airport or not, he would see that regardless of the type of aerodrome, he saw that all the personnel were getting trained. So everything that we had prepared for such a long time was becoming evident in the process. So it was not simply a matter of getting ready for the audit. Thank you, Ricardo. So at the end of the day, what these processes want is to do as you said, not just to get prepared for the audit, and then when the auditor leaves, we make a toast with champagne. No, it's the thing is that the state should show that it does have a continuous process. Yes. Yes, this is what happened to us. And in the last year and a half, we've implemented a steady or a regular work team. So the audit for us starts on Wednesday, that is in just a couple of days until the 4th of July. But on the 5th of July, we'll be working again on 8 auditable areas. And this is the way it's been agreed, and it will continue to be so in time. So it's a lesson learned. We didn't used to do it that way, but we are doing it in that way now. Thank you, Eduardo, for sharing that.
Well, we take note of that, and you should know that through the regional system, the colleagues have the assistance available. And to the colleagues of Guyana, Suriname that are not part of the system, you should know that through the regional office, you can talk to us and request any assistance as necessary, be it directly through the regional office or through the system, because there's a conclusion of the system where the general board authorized assistance to these states on specific issues. So we can do that if necessary. So that's information paper number 9 under agenda item 2. I think that's the last information paper for agenda item 2. Yes, Carlos, Pepe, from Uruguay. Yes, I got lost in the information paper. Where is it located? Is it on the website of the meeting? Yes, it is posted on the website. It's number 9, information paper number 9. Very well then. That's the last information paper under this item. And with that, we have completed agenda item 2. Unless there's any question or comment, I think that we can call it a day, and we'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Any final comments? If not, I want to ask you one more thing. Those of you who wish, please turn on your camera so that we can take a group picture. Let's do it now. Turn on your cameras if you wish, please. Very well then. Eva, are you ready? Let me know, Eva, when you're ready. Very well then. Thank you very much to all the colleagues for today's session. We'll be back tomorrow to conclude the other items. Tomorrow we will present papers of ASILAC and Garsam Paf and others. So have a great day. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Fabio. Greetings, Rodrigo. Thank you.